Welcome back to Horn Takes, your Texas football and baseball talk destination. I am Sean Redfern. It is Longhorn Friday Eve. We're excited about that. Headed down to Austin a little later on this afternoon. Going to hang out tomorrow, eat some good food, have some nice drinks, getting ready for the game on Saturday. We're excited about that. First playoff game in Darrell K. Royal. First time to play the Clemson Tigers in football. It almost doesn't get much better than that. Weather is going to be absolutely beautiful when you consider the weather in other parts of the country. The other three playoff games this weekend, 20s, snow, wet, breezy, basically just shitty. I- I've played in some really cold games. I'm from Texas. I've played in some really cold games in Texas in high school and in college. Well, at some point, it just gets cold and it's just cold, and you don't even like. I don't. I mean, I definitely think there's like levels to cold, but I think as long as you don't like instantly freeze when you go outside, cold is just cold. I like cold. Only time I like it hot is if there's a swimming pool or a beach nearby, preferably both. But it'll be interesting to see how SMU, for example, handles that weather up at State College. Indiana and Notre Dame are used to it. The people at Ohio State are making this big damn deal like Tennessee, a part of Tennessee isn't in the mountains and it's like one state away. I don't think the weather affects that one at all. I mean, the weather will affect it if it's really windy or just like moist. If it starts to get damp, that's different. The only thing worse than cold is damp and cold. So we're excited to head down to Austin. We're excited for this game. If you guys see us, we'll be out tailgating. We'll be kind of in the area over behind the stage where Pat Green's going to be playing on Saturday. If you guys see us, come by, have a beer, say hello. Love to meet you. Do some pictures or videos or something. We'll get some media up. Be a good time. We're going to do Trace Otra Games College Football Playoff Edition today, as well as 4 keys and a prediction for the Texas versus Clemson game on Saturday. Cannot reiterate how excited I am about this. I mean, I don't feel like it necessarily. I am. I'm part of history. I will be part of history on Saturday, which is pretty cool. First playoff game at Darrell K. Royal. First time the Texas Longhorns have ever played the Clemson Tigers. One day when I'm 100 years old in my rocking chair, sitting around the fire, and like my kids have forced their kids to come and visit their great granddaddy, I'll tell them the story about how I was there. I was at Darrell K. Royal back before college football was completely ruined and everybody stopped watching it because of NIL and jumping ship and transfer portal and all that shit. I'll tell my kids that story. And they'll think it's the greatest thing ever. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, we're at Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcast, Spotify Podcast, all the podcasts. You can also find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com, but I would really encourage you to go to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is where it's at. There's extra content that goes up there that doesn't go anywhere else. I just can't keep up with all these places. So I'm gonna put a big effort into YouTube and Twitter. We'll just see how it goes. If you're listening to this and you're on TikTok, I would encourage you also go check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Twitter. We're a lot more active there than we are on TikTok anymore. Let's do Trace Otra games. We got number 10 Indiana at number 7 Notre Dame. That is Friday night, 7 p.m. kick. on ABC and ESPN. Notre Dame is 7-point favorite in this one at home. Indiana's first trip to the college football playoffs. That's another cool thing about this 12-team playoff, and it's only going to be cool for a little bit because you're going to start to see a lot of teams that just consistently make it, and it'll be very rare that you see a new team do it. I think even sort of at the so and I don't mean to call them the lower level, but like your Boise States and things like that. I think the teams that get in early from these smaller conferences, even the Power Four ones like the Big 12, those are going to be the schools that are hard to keep out of there. I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Indiana's first trip, Notre Dame's third appearance. Notre Dame's made it to one national championship game, and they just got absolutely thumped. I think the other two appearances, they were semifinals and out. Kind of a redemption type game for Indiana. It's an opportunity for them to prove again on a big stage that they can beat a good team. They went into Ohio State. They looked good early in that game, and then they just had a ton of issues, ton of mistakes. Let that one get away from them. Kind of let the moment be too big for them, I think. So this is another chance for them to go on the road, prove they belong in the college football playoff. A lot of people said if they didn't beat Ohio State, they shouldn't be in, regardless of what they do the rest of the season. They got in. I think they only got in because some of those guys in the SEC just could not get right, couldn't keep winning games. Both of these teams, if you look at their total offense statistics, really similar. Notre Dame's going to be very run heavy. Indiana's going to be a little more balanced between pass and run. Both of these defenses, top 10 in total defense and passing yards allowed. Indiana is the number one team in the country on defense against the run. Notre Dame's ranked 51st. It's going to be hella cold. I think the original forecast, like earlier this week, were maybe upper 20s and maybe even into the 30s. This one's going to be in the low 20s, folks, according to the Weather Channel now. And there's a chance for some wet stuff, snow, maybe some just cold rain. In these cold games, these wet games, it's usually windy when it's this type of weather. It really boils down to who can run the football. And I think this is kind of going to be an old-fashioned 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of game. If you put it in black and white, you might think you were watching a game from 50, 60, 70 years ago. I think turnovers are obviously a huge factor in a game like this. I think Indiana's going to cover, but I think Notre Dame's just going to be a little too much at home, and I think this is a low-scoring game. I think all these games are low-scoring games. I'll probably be wrong as shit on that, but that's just the way it goes. I got Notre Dame 17-13 over Indiana. I think both these defenses just really, really good. Number 11 SMU at number 6 Penn State. 11 a.m. kick on Saturday on TNT. Penn State 8.5-point favorite. Both teams their first trip to the college football playoff. Again, another situation where the offenses are really similar in total offense statistically. Penn State's more balanced. SMU is going to be more pass heavy. Total defense favors the Penn State Nittany Lions. SMU slightly better against the run than Penn State is. But Penn State has a marked advantage in pass defense over SMU. Again, cold, possibly wet, windy. I got to go with the team that I think that can run the ball the most consistently. And I think, SMU ran into Clemson last week in the ACC championship game, or 2 weekends ago in the ACC championship game. Was it 2 weeks? Yeah. Time flies when you're old. And we just thought going into that one, SMU's had a great season. They're a very talented roster. It's a good team. But it's a step up when you start playing the Clemsons of the world, start playing the Penn States of the world. And I think as much as I dog on Penn State and James Franklin or Rich Franklin or whatever that dude's name is, the Franklin guy that coaches Penn State, they got a good team. So I think it's going to be just a little bit too much for SMU. They had a great year number one in the Power Four conference, but all that's going to end on Saturday. I think Penn State's going to get it done 27-17 over SMU in some just ugly, nasty weather. Those Dallas guys, man, they're going to be bundled up, wearing all the gear. And the Penn State guys are going to roll out of the locker room in shorts and a T-shirt to warm up like it ain't shit. Number 9, Tennessee at number 8, Ohio State. 7 p.m. kick on ABC, ESPN on Saturday. Ohio State's a 7.5-point favorite. And I've been seeing all kinds of stuff on Twitter about Tennessee just taking over Columbus. They're just going to take it over. They're going to take over the shoe. They're all going to be there. I know it's not that far of a drive. I'll tell you this. A few years ago, we went to the College World Series, and it was Tennessee's first time at the College World Series in a while, I think. They had been kind of good, and they just hadn't made it, and they finally made it. It was the year Texas eliminated them. There were a ton of Tennessee fans over in Omaha. I talked to one guy. He said, "Yeah, we drove, man. We got up, we drove all night, and da 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 da." So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many tickets are out there for the game, but I think this Tennessee fan base will travel. I think they're excited to finally be in this type of situation. 110,000 people go to Neyland Stadium on Saturdays, so it would not surprise me at all if you saw a lot of that ugly ass orange at the shoe on Saturday. Both these teams, again, very similar statistically. When you look at them head to head in total offense, they're very, very similar. Tennessee, more run heavy and almost perfectly balanced. Ohio State's going to be a little more pass heavy. Ohio State's got the number one total defense in the country. Tennessee's very, very good too. Both in the top 10 in total and rushing defense. Ohio State's got the number 2 pass defense. Tennessee's got the number 15 pass defense. So a theme you're starting to see in these playoff games is good defenses. You probably heard it 50 million times. Defense wins championships. It's true. Both of the QBs in this game, either really talented or very veteran, very seasoned. Will Howard been in college football for 437 years. And then you got Nico Iamaleava, and I probably completely butchered. That's the first time I've actually tried to pronounce that dude's name. I'm sure I screwed it up. Apologies, Nico. Nico I, maybe that's what I'll call him. But he's really, really talented. Got a talented group of guys to throw the ball to. So I think they're going to try. I think these teams are going to try to pass it a little more. I don't think either one of these teams is really going to line up and try to just run the ball, regardless of the weather. So I kind of think it's going to come down to which QB can make some plays. And I think both teams are going to struggle to run the ball consistently, even if they try. The defenses are just really good. You know, you talk about Will Howard. He's been around forever. I don't know that the guy's ever won a big game. He just absolutely folded up like a tent against Michigan. Michigan's not that good. That was one of our when we started talking about the season before the season started, we talked about, I don't know, we had like 4 or 5 like storylines to follow in college football, and that was one of them. How good was this Michigan team really going to be after losing all those folks and losing all those coaches? We found out they're not that good. And Will Howard, I mean, he did not play well in that game. I think for Tennessee, can Heupel, can he be patient like Michigan was with the run game and kind of pick their spots to try to get the ball down the field? Or does he show up in, really cold weather, really bad conditions and try to do what they would normally do? I know they like to run the football. It'll be interesting to see if they can against this Ohio State defense. Ohio State a huge favorite, man. I don't get it. I like Tennessee on the road in their first ever playoff game. I like the Volunteers in the takeover of the shoe. I think they're going to be singing Rocky Top all weekend long in Columbus. I like Tennessee 23-17 over Ohio State. I just don't think that Ohio State team is that good. And I think Tennessee just has a ton of weapons, and their defense is really good. That offensive line does a really good job blocking in the run game. We'll see. Four keys in a prediction. Clemson Tigers edition. College football playoff round one edition. Key number one for Texas, they have got to protect the football. I mean, can we go one game without just turning the damn ball over? It's become like part of what we do. It is what we are. Both these defenses really good taking the ball away from opposing offenses. Texas is first in the country. Tennessee, or excuse me, not Tennessee. Clemson eighth. The flip side of that is Clemson is also really good at protecting the football on offense. They're ranked, they're ninth in the country in turnovers. Texas, 113th. That's terrible. I think if Texas can't protect the ball, they're going to lose this game. If they get into a situation where Clemson also does not turn the ball over, which they don't, and Texas has some turnovers offensively, I think they'll lose this game. Clemson's got weapons. They got Dabo Swinney, who's been there. They don't need any extra help. They don't need any extra possessions. I know it's Christmas, but Texas, you have got to protect the football, guard it with your life, be stingy as hell with it. Do not turn the ball over. Key number two, Texas has got to score touchdowns. Texas dominated Georgia in the first half of that SEC championship game. They had almost 300 yards of offense. I believe Georgia definitely had less than 100. I believe it was 77. And I could have looked it up, but I didn't want to look it up. I know it was less than 100. It was an ass kicking statistically. And you know what they had to show for it? They had 6 points on the board and a 3-point lead at halftime. That absolutely cannot happen. This Texas defense been great all season, but one group can only like hold the waters back for so long. I mean, if you're the Texas offense, you cannot keep putting the defense in these terrible situations where they have to almost pitch a shutout just to win the game. I was back and forth with CJ Vogel on Twitter today, and he was talking about, Texas just needs 24 points a game, he thinks, to win the national championship. The defense is that good. And I threw a stat at him. Texas has averaged 25 points per game, a little over 25 points per game for the last 7 games. He comes back and says they've only scored over 20 points once in the last 4. Wow. Can't do it. They got to score. The offense has got to hold up its own end of the bargain. If Texas is going to win on Saturday and they're going to try to make any kind of run in the college football playoff, the offense has got to start going. I mean, it's a really good defense, and probably they could carry this team. They just can't keep getting put in. Like if Texas could just go a game without turning the ball over and just giving away points to the other team, the defense probably could like start pitching really close to shutouts. And the offense could fumble around and mess around and figure out some ways to score some points and win games. The defense is good enough to do that. But you're in the fourth quarter of the SEC championship game. You just turn the ball over, give them 3 free points. You're in the first half of the SEC championship game. You're throwing the ball up and down the field. You just cannot get it in the end zone. You miss field goals. This offense got to score, and they got to score touchdowns. Key number 3, they got to win at the line of scrimmage. It is a tale as old as time. Skill players do not win football games. Skill players are the ones that everybody cheers for. Skill players are the ones that everybody remembers their name. They're the ones that command massive contracts. They're the ones that command massive NIL deals, but they do not win football games. And I don't care who you – I mean, that's going to piss some of y'all off. I don't care. Skill players do not win football games. Big humans win football games. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen, those are the people that win football games. Because without those guys, the skill guys can't do shit. I think this Texas offensive line should be able to get some movement against that Clemson D-line in the run game. If they can get up to the second level, get on those linebackers, I think Texas have a really good game on the ground. Clemson's not great against the run. They're about midway of the pack. I think they're ranked like 54th in the country. So a little south of midway. Clemson pass rush, very, very good one. If you look at Texas as a whole, you'll go, man, they just give up a lot of sacks. But they gave up 13 of those sacks against one team. They've given up 28 sacks all season. They've given up 13 of those, almost half of their sacks to one team in 2 different games. So far, the only team that has been able to crack that code consistently has been Georgia. I think Clemson's talented. They're good. I don't know how deep they are. I know they bring a lot of pressure from a lot of different places. Those linebackers are really, really active in the pass rush game. Texas is going to have to hold up. I think this Texas defensive line has a massive advantage over the Clemson offensive line. They're not that big. I mean, they're big. They're big guys, but they're not like these behemoth offensive lines we've been seeing consistently in SEC play. They're middle of the road in the country in sacks allowed. And I don't think this offensive line has seen the size, quickness, strength, speed combo from a defensive line like they're going to see from Texas since their week 1 game against Georgia. There's good players in the ACC, but I don't think they've seen this many good players on one team. And then the backups come in and they're just as good as the starters. I don't think they've seen that since Georgia. So nothing against those ACC teams, nothing against those players. I think that matchup is a massive favor for Texas. Big humans win football games. Skill position players do not. The big humans wearing burnt orange on Saturday, they need to get back on top, especially that offensive line. The offensive line has played really good outside of 2 games this year, and both of those games against the same team, and they were pretty embarrassing. I mean, as much as Texas dominated that game in the first half in Atlanta a couple weekends ago, they almost got whipped that as bad in the second half. They got to get back up on top. Key number 4. I think if you're Steve Sarkisian, you got to be willing to stray from the plan when the plan isn't working. There aren't a lot of things. I've said this multiple times. There's not a lot of stuff you could look at Steve Sarkisian and be critical about. all around, to me, one of the best coaches in college football. I cannot say enough about the way he turned the culture around in a very short amount of time at the University of Texas. Texas was in the gutter. They're in the playoffs in year 3. They're in the playoff again in year 4. Conference champs last year, played for the conference champ in a new conference this year that everybody said they wouldn't be able to come in and even come close to competing in. And they're just a play or two away in that game from winning the SEC in year 1. But if there is something I mean, we've talked about the running game, and this is part of it. It's just his stubbornness with game plans. I feel like, and I don't know. I don't have no inside information. I don't know what the game plan is. I obviously don't have like a list of his plays and all that stuff, like that he's going to carry to the game. I don't know what he talks about with the team all week. So a lot of this is just speculation on my part, but it seems like he'll get surprised by something during a game, kind of like Arkansas surprised him. I don't think anybody thought Arkansas was going 3 deep safeties, picket fence, 5 yards off the ball, and 3 down linemen against Texas. I just don't. I don't think they thought that was going to happen. And when you see a look like that, the first thing that should pop into your head is, let's get this ball, let's get in the pistol and just get this ball going north and south. None of this sideways shit. Nothing fancy. I got 5 offensive linemen. There's 3 down linemen. We're going to get our hats on those 3 guys, and we're going to get a couple other guys up to the second level, and we're going to hand it off going downhill 100 miles an hour. You would pick up 5, 6 yards every damn time doing that. And instead, we threw the ball because that was the game plan. It took him till almost the 4th quarter of that game to figure out that they could run the ball against 3 down linemen. And it's not because he's stupid. He knows that. He's just stubborn. And I think this Clemson team is going to throw them some curveballs. I would not be surprised at all if Clemson came out in that same type of look. Clemson ran a ton of man coverage, man-free coverage against SMU. If they do that against Texas and Texas can block, this game might be 70-3. I don't think their secondary can cover Texas all day long like that. And I don't think they're going to do that. There's going to be a mix of things, and it's all going to be situational. But I think there's going to be kind of a theme for this Clemson defense, and I am really interested to see what that theme is. And then I'm also really interested to see how Steve Sarkisian adjusts to it, if he adjusts to it. Is he going to come in with a game plan and just be willing to die on that hill? Or is he capable of sort of stepping back in a big moment in the middle of a game and shifting gears? We'll find out. I mean, what we've seen out of him over the years at Texas is he's going to do what he wants to do, and he's going to die on that hill. I think we're going to see a lot of soft coverage. And I think we could see that same type of 3 down lineman look that we saw against Arkansas to try to get a numbers advantage in the passing game, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to pass the ball. That's what Sark likes to do. Pass to set up the run. A prediction for this game. We talked about it at the top, man. This is the first time Clemson and Texas have ever played a football game against each other. How badass is it that the first time these two schools meet, It's in a college football playoff game, and it's the very first one at Darrell K. Royal. Folks, if you guys are in Austin and you don't go to this game, I got a question like, what's wrong with you? And I know there's a lot of family stuff going on. I know that. I don't know. My ass is going to that game. If you live in Austin, you could go to that. You could spend about 5 hours of your Saturday and get to that game, watch the game, get home, spend the rest of the 19 hours of Saturday with your family. And if they love you, they'll let you do it because it's Christmas. Texas a 12-point favorite in this game, which just seems absolutely nuts to me. It's absolutely a game that Texas should win. It's at home. Texas's roster is better. I think they've been tested more. But I think this is the playoffs. And you look across that field, if you're Steve Sarkisian, you're going to see Dabo Swinney. He has a lot of experience in the playoffs. They've been 7 times. They've had 4 national title appearances, and they've won 2 of them. Dabo Swinney knows how to coach in these big type of games. Just a lot like Kirby Smart does. There are a lot of variables in place to me for this to be kind of a dud for Texas. As crazy as that sounds, they're coming off a really frustrating loss to Georgia. Despite this being the first college football playoff game in DKR history, I think the atmosphere is going to be a little subdued. There are like there's still over 2,000 tickets. Yesterday there were 3,000 tickets for sale, or 3,000 listings. That's not the tickets themselves, that's the listings. Today there's still over 2,000. And the prices are going down and people aren't buying them. You got Texas high school football state championships this week. 2 Austin teams playing for state titles this weekend, this Saturday. School's out, so the students are off all over the place. It's the weekend before Christmas. People got plans. I don't know if any of you guys have been to the Thanksgiving Texas A&M games back when they kind of reinstated that a few years before A&M bounced for the SEC. Those were some really subdued, laid back, not much going on before the game. Place not full. The people that were there were just kind of hung over on turkey and dressing and whatever else. Just not big time atmosphere. And I just have a feeling that's what we're going to see on Saturday. Transfer portal opened up, so you got all these people taking visits, leaving, coming back, leaving again. The media won't shut up about Quinn and Arch being a better option, and they got to do this and they got to do that. Lots of distractions. We talked about the offense. They've been pretty damn abysmal over the last 7 games. They've turned the ball over 15 times in the last 7 games, averaging 25 points per game in the last 7 games, which is 10 points lower than their season average, I believe. So you asked me, how in the world could a team come out flat in a college football playoff game? Well, I just rattled off a bunch of reasons why the Texas Longhorns could come out flat in a college football playoff game. There's a lot of Texas fans that are just looking right past this one, looking right past Arizona State, and they're already talking semifinals, and I do not understand why. Offensively, this Texas team, I expect a slow start. I think the defense is going to play well. I think whatever happens, they're going to keep Texas in it for a long time, as long as they need to, provided the offense doesn't just absolutely hand the game to Clemson. I think Texas wins this game, but I don't think they cover. And I think this game is a low-scoring game as well. I got Texas 23-17 over Clemson in round 1, the college football playoff down at DKR. We will be back on Sunday. I reached out to the guys at SEC Unfiltered. We're going to try to get a live stream going Sunday night. I'll have more details as I have more details. But I already got Chris Phillips and Dave Shoemate in on it. I have not heard back from Cole Thompson, but we'll see. We'll talk college football playoffs round 1 Sunday night sometime. Be checking Twitter for that. There'll be some drunk Sean thoughts in there for sure. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Won't cost you guys a thing, but we sure appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. If you're headed down to Austin, be safe. Let's have a good weekend. Let's beat those Tigers. Get hooked.